Donald Trump just made a move that has the entire world watching, and America is reacting in ways nobody expected, from Wall Street to Washington to everyday families wondering what happens next, and today we're breaking down exactly what's going on and why it matters to you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, the place where we cut through the noise and break down what's actually happening in politics, the economy, and the world around us in a way that's simple and easy to follow. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because we cover stories like this all the time, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Today we are diving into President Trump's latest move regarding the ongoing conflict with Iran, the reaction from across America, and what this could mean for everything from gas prices to the stock market to the 2026 political landscape. Stick around till the end because there's a detail in this story that most news outlets are completely glossing over. So let's set the scene. Tensions between the United States and Iran have been escalating for months now, centered largely around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes on the entire planet. A huge percentage of the world's oil passes through that narrow stretch of water every single day, and any disruption there sends shockwaves through global energy markets almost instantly. Just this week, President Trump made headlines by publicly denying that any talks were happening with Iran, directly contradicting statements his own administration had made just days earlier about a supposed back channel with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That kind of mixed messaging alone has caused confusion, but it's what came next that really got people talking. Trump also issued a direct threat toward Oman, warning the country against interfering with U.S. efforts in the Strait of Hormuz, as a 60-day deadline for reaching a deal with Iran quietly expired without any real resolution in sight. Now here's where it gets even more serious. Just recently, the United Arab Emirates made the dramatic decision to suspend all trade and financial transactions with Iran entirely. Think about that for a second. This is a major economic power in the region essentially cutting off financial ties completely, which is one of the clearest signs yet that the situation in the Gulf is not cooling down, it's heating up. Meanwhile, oil prices have been climbing, with analysts pointing directly to Trump's comments about there being no talks scheduled as a key reason why. When markets hear that diplomacy has stalled, they don't wait around to find out what happens next, they start pricing in risk immediately, and that risk gets passed down to everyday people at the gas pump and in their monthly bills. At the same time, there's a whole other layer to this story happening in Gaza. Trump's own envoy, Jared Kushner, reportedly pushed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to dial back near-daily strikes in Gaza that have continued despite a ceasefire technically being in place. Just one day after that meeting, a strike hit a group Israel described as Hamas commanders, though sources on the ground say it was actually a logistical team, and tragically, among those killed were a 13-year-old boy and his father. This kind of contradiction, public diplomatic pressure on one hand and continued military action on the other, is exactly the kind of thing that's fueling America's reaction right now. People are asking, is this administration actually working toward peace, or is the rhetoric simply not matching the reality on the ground? And that brings us to how America itself is responding. Trump's approval ratings have reportedly dropped to the lowest point of his entire presidency according to recent reporting, even as the White House continues to project confidence, going as far as touring construction of a new helipad on the South Lawn while overseas tensions continue to spiral. That image alone, a sitting president showing off construction project at the White House while a war involving American forces rages on in the Middle East, has become a lightning rod on social media, with critics saying it shows a disconnect between the administration's priorities and what everyday Americans are actually worried about. On the other side, supporters argue that Trump is simply staying tough and refusing to be pressured into a bad deal, pointing to his repeated statements that preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon remains the top priority no matter how long the standoff takes. Beyond the politics, there's a very real economic angle here that affects every single American household. With the Strait of Hormuz remaining a flashpoint and Houthi rebels in Yemen claiming to have targeted multiple oil tankers in recent weeks, energy markets are on edge, and that uncertainty tends to trickle down fast. Even the mere expectation that the situation won't be resolved soon has been enough to push oil futures higher, which historically has a direct impact on inflation, transportation costs, and the price of pretty much everything that needs to be shipped anywhere. So even if you're not following the geopolitics closely, this is the kind of story that ends up showing up in your wallet whether you're paying attention to it or not. Now here's that detail I mentioned earlier that a lot of coverage is skipping over. While all of this is unfolding, Trump has also been actively expanding economic diplomacy elsewhere, including a notable visit from Iraq's Prime Minister to the White House back in July, which was described as the beginning of a new phase focused on economic cooperation rather than military relations. That's a pretty significant contrast, aggressive posturing toward Iran and Oman on one side, while simultaneously building new economic bridges with Iraq on the other. It suggests a much more complicated regional strategy than the simple headlines are giving credit for, and it's worth keeping an eye on how these two approaches play out together in the months ahead. So to wrap up where things stand right now, talks with Iran remain stalled despite conflicting statements from the administration. The UAE has taken the serious step of cutting financial ties with Iran, oil prices are climbing on growing uncertainty, tensions in Gaza remain unresolved despite behind-the-scenes diplomatic pressure, and back home, Trump's approval numbers are sliding even as the White House projects business as usual. All of this together paints a picture of a moment that could genuinely reshape the next several months of American foreign policy and domestic politics alike. That's where things stand for now, but this is a fast-moving story and we'll be keeping a close eye on it as new developments come in. If this video helped you understand what's actually going on, do us a favor and hit that like button. It really helps this channel reach more people who are trying to stay informed. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update on this story. Let us know in the comments what you think about all of this, and which part of the story surprised you the most. Thanks so much for watching, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.